Yeah, and so let's talk about it because after just a prolific weekend for flooding across parts of the heartland and south, flood warnings, they do remain in place from Missouri to Kentucky as many rivers sit at major flood stage at this time. So just showing you scenes from states like Kentucky on Friday and Arkansas. I mean, it was just a horrific situation. Mike Seidel, he was along the Saline River yesterday, and that's that mobile home park that you're looking at there on the left where the Saline River, unfortunately, reached major flood stage on Sunday, and now, thankfully, we are starting to see it trend downward. But that's just kind of the gist all across the region, as we've got 12, almost 13 million people that are under some type of flood alert for today. And so if you do live in a low-lying flood-prone area, you are most at risk. And you can clearly see from our flood watches down south in Alabama to Georgia to our areas of concern, especially in some of our hard-hit states like Kentucky and even into southern Illinois, Indiana. There's a lot still on the table for us in terms of flooding issues, although the rain might have long passed your location.
And some rivers will be cresting today. Again, when we talk about a river cresting, it's more of a process. I think many times folks can get locked up in this idea that it's like a magical number, which data-wise it is a number. It's the highest point that the river level is getting, but it's more of a crescendo and a decrescendo. It takes a process to crest and everything's flooded leading up to that, and then you have flooding that persists on the backside when everything's trying to go back into bank. So it takes days to go through this process, and when we see crests that happened yesterday, a few happening today, we're not going to be back in bank until we get to the middle end of this week. Let's take a look at how much rain we have stacked up in the past 5 days, and you'll see why. We've had over a foot of rain in Kentucky. So all of this is going to be going to the Gulf. That's the game plan. And there's rivers and creeks that will get it from Kentucky all the way down to the Gulf. And that process takes time. And when it's backlogged and we have so many flood reports, it makes it take even longer. So it's about patience. It's about avoiding these areas. Unfortunately, homes that have taken on water, the water can stay inside the house for a long time in this type of a setup because the river has to get back in bank before we can get the water out of the houses.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly right. And so when you're looking right now at all of our kind of river flooding and where a lot of our rivers stand, just a few days ago, the majority of them were in minor to moderate flood stage, which is still where we sit for most areas. But there are a few additional rivers that are now experiencing major flood stage, and that is a big concern. Arkansas, Kentucky, even all the way over into Virginia. So you mentioned getting it to the Gulf. Everything obviously has to flow downstream, and that is what will be taking place now over the course of the next few days. So major flooding in progress, and I'm thinking back to yesterday. It was the Ohio River that really was a concern. Just the images coming out from the Ohio River, just shocking just to see how quickly and how high that water had risen. So we cannot stress enough that you might live in an area that you're used to flooding. You're saying, oh, it's no big deal, but it will quickly become a big deal, especially as those rivers overflow their banks.
For the rivers that are downstream, the rise happens very quickly. For the Ohio Valley, I mean, within a matter of hours, they had a 5-foot increase. And so a lot of the residents were taken back by that. There's the flow plan from the river, the Mississippi River Basin, the Ohio River Basin. Again, all this has to filter down south and eventually will end up in the Gulf. So the system works, but it takes a long time for it to work, especially when we've had so much rain.